Well, hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of Marriage Matters with Ken and Shar. It's so good to be here with you. How you doing, babe?
I'm doing well. I'm glad to be here, too.
It's fun, yeah?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Ready for another episode?
Yes, I am.
All right.
Well, I think I am. We'll see how it
let's
goes.
check it out and find out, yeah?
Yep.
We are in our second part of a series. We said it last episode that nothing on marital love could be complete without a pretty deep dive into 1 Corinthians 13. Christians call it the love chapter. The love chapter, that's right. Where the attributes of God's kind of love are there in plain sight for us to see. We started last week with just the preeminence of love, right?
Mm-hmm.
How important it is. It's more important than even that we operate in the giftings of the Holy Spirit and those kinds of things. We achieve kingdom things. Love is more important than all that. We talked about that love is to be something we pursue, where the gifts of the Spirit are something that we should desire. There's a big difference there.
Is.
If my life is to pursue anything, it's to pursue loving people, and people most of all would be my wife, my children, right? So we're continuing that, and we're at the first attribute that actually comes up when it's describing love is love suffers long. Now that language, it's followed by the way, love is kind, and the two really kind of go together. It would be too long of an episode to do them both at the same time. So we'll back it up right away with love is kind. But today we're talking about love suffers long as an attribute of God's kind of love.
So I want to add in right here that suffers long. You know, the physical love that we talk about as married people, and then there's emotional love that we talk about as married people. But this is the love that only the Lord can give us, and long suffering in a marriage is what people don't know how to do very well.
Boy, this is true.
I don't know how to do it very well. I mean, I don't mean this bad, but anybody, don't know how to do it well.
We're grossly impatient.
This is
we kind of want what we want when we want
exactly
it overall, right?
Overall.
That's our
and
fallen,
I don't,
that's our default.
Yes,
that's our fallen nature.
I don't think that we're different than anybody else.
No.
And this is such a pivotal point in resolving conflict and getting along and enjoying your spouse and not always thinking about the negative, but the good qualities. This long suffering thing is just preeminent in our marriage every day. This is everyday stuff.
If a person lacks this particular attribute, I love that this is where 1 Corinthians 13 starts. Love suffers long, love is kind. That if you lack this, you're heading, gang, towards a life of really constant turmoil. You're upset,
right,
aggravation, irritation with each other. Long suffering is an attribute. If you want peace in your home and with each other as a loving married couple, long suffering is absolutely required.
This is a fruit of the Spirit.
It is a fruit of the Spirit. In Galatians 5:22, it actually says it, that the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long suffering. It's the fourth one mentioned there. And the reason we bring that up is so that nobody at the end of this podcast goes, okay, I'm going to work real hard. I'm going to gut it up. I'm going to work real hard right now to be a long suffering person, or some translations are patient, right? Because you won't work this up in yourself. It's not inherent within our fallen human nature.
No.
It's an attribute of God. 1 John 4 says, for love, agape love, is of God. Verse 8 says, God is agape. It is him, and it comes from him. Romans 5:5 says that love is shed abroad in our hearts, though, by the Holy Spirit. So we possess it,
right,
and are able to operate in it, but only by God's grace and by the work of his Spirit.
But I think it takes a lot of practice.
Oh, yeah.
To do the long suffering bit.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, either you are kind of a patient person naturally,
right,
or you're not. You know that if you get in the car and you're completely agitated the whole time you're driving, you're probably not very long suffering.
We just talked about this.
Oh, we didn't we?
Driving. If I could, when we counsel couples, I've always said, okay, I know who really is
the instigator.
If I could just hang a little hidden camera in their car for 1 week and watch them drive together. I'm going to find out who is the real irritant here.
Well, when we first got married up until about year 40, I'm cautious, and Kenny's driving a lot. He likes to drive, and I'm cautious, maybe because I'm not driving and I'm not in control. I don't know what it is, but he likes to speed around and do these things that actually it just frightens me. And we would be going out of town. I remember when we first got married, we'd be driving out of town, going away on maybe a weekend trip to be together. And by the time we get there, we're in such a bad fight because he has scared me the whole way that we're driving, passing cars, running up on them, getting mad at a driver, wanting to do this and that. It would be like,
okay, time out. You're making this sound way worse than I was.
Well, in the passenger seat, that's how I felt.
Yeah. So I wasn't unsafe. I felt in control.
In my opinion, you were a little unsafe. And remember, Kenny?
I do.
We fought about this over and over and over again, and you could not see my perspective. No. And
in the end, now today, I drive very different when I'm with Charlene.
Well, you're more patient with me when I say something.
Well, and you had to be patient with me figuring this out.
Right.
And so
it took a really long time.
That's just one little arena.
But that's what gets marriages right there. You go off on that, and you go off on something else, and you go off on something else, and you're ticked because of it. Not you, but people are ticked because of, they can't figure out where to go to dinner. Those little things are what make people, they don't get along.
Are you saying this is an example of just a lack of long suffering? That,
in my opinion, it is.
I think you're right. No,
but it's the little stuff. We think that marriages are in trouble because of big stuff. Most of the time, it's little stuff.
Good point.
Though we think, long suffering, it's a little thing. This is a big thing in a marriage.
It's a big deal.
And I don't think people give it the weight that they should, that they need to be a long suffering person and pray for that fruit of the Spirit to be in their life if they continually are arguing about little things.
Sure. Hang in there with us as we go through this episode. At the end, I think we're going to cite a couple examples of particularly where Charlene has been so gracious and long suffering with my growth and maturity.
Well, I mean, let's face it, it's a two-way street here.
It always is. But I will list a couple just because I think we're pretty common. And they may be arenas where others can relate to. So a couple thoughts first. Because this is God's kind of love, not man's kind of love, every believer, there's a simple thought here, guys. Every married Christian or every Christian who is married, you got to make a choice. What am I offering my spouse? I'm either offering them the love that's completely human, limited, has its limits.
Fades very quickly.
Right. It isn't long suffering.
No.
It's unwilling to suffer, actually. Or it's God's kind of love, agape love. Really, in the end, you got to decide, am I just going to default to my nature as a fallen human being and be impatient, unkind, frustrated, selfish? Look, you got to decide.
When you're not getting your way.
Right. Or am I going to offer Shar God's kind of love? And that's just the bottom line. They are not the same thing.
Are you going to be a long-suffering person or a not long-suffering person, patient or impatient?
Right.
I think it's not just the love you offer to me, it's the person that you become.
Well, true. It has a lot to do with that.
Right.
Yeah, with your character.
It's character thing.
It's pretty important to, I think, lump these first two attributes, love suffers long and love is kind, together, because we could suffer long as a couple with each other and be very patient and wait, but do it grumbling the whole time. And so
very true.
He follows suffer long with kindness. And I just think of the Lord as an example. He suffers long with humanity and he remains kind.
It's true.
He allows the most horrid rebel, this great traitor against our Creator, to shake their fists at God, and all the while the sun shines upon him. he can live a blessed life. And the Lord is kind to him and merciful, even in his unbelief and rejection of his son. So this idea that love suffers long, and it does it still showing kindness, to me is a mind blower.
It is.
So keep that in mind this episode, because we'll roll straight into this second attribute, that love is kind, in our next episode. Now, this word is translated in both the ESV, the New American Standard, as love is patient, which isn't a bad translation, but I like the New King James better in that it holds the idea that if I'm going to love Charlene well, like the Lord, and show her agape love, that it requires of me a willingness to endure uncomfortable things. And so it begs the question, I think will beg the question right now with everybody listening, man, gang, are you willing or not to endure uncomfortable things in your spouse's life? And again, we're going to give some examples. Charlene, I was not easy to be married to early on, probably not now either, but Charlene really had to be graceful and suffer long and be patient with arenas of growth in my life. And we'll talk about those in a minute. But we want to ask the question, here's what we thought we'd do. Let's ask the question, why are we to be willing to suffer long? Why is this such a big deal to in a married life? And we're going to give 4 reasons for it.
Well, I can think of one that you didn't put on here.
Go.
It's just you get along better.
Well, true. Makes a better life.
Life is better. I don't understand why people just want to fight all the time. I just don't get it.
Yeah. Boy, good point.
But I mean, that's
the 5th point.
That's not
life
the
is awesome.
Scriptural point. I'm just thinking it's just better.
Okay. Number 5.
You go.
So we're going to go backwards from 5 back to 1.
Okay.
5 is love is just, life is just awesomer if we suffer long.
Well,
so here's number 1. Here we go. We are to be willing to suffer long with each other, and the weird stuff and the hard stuff. Even, by the way, I love the way that Kenneth Weiss, my favorite translator, translates this word of patient or suffers long. He says it's the willingness to meekly and patiently bear even ill treatment from others, which is not easy to do.
I'm not good at that.
No, nobody is, right? But it's, even if loving me means having to endure irritating parts of my life, this is what marriage is willing to do for the sake of the unity of a marriage. Now caveat here, I'm not talking about abusive behavior.
I am glad that you just said that, because some people might take that and go,
that no matter what.
Yeah.
No. There's clearly lines where we are not to allow ourselves to be treated abusively. And when we've many times gotten a spouse out of a relationship like that, out of the home, until they're safe, right? So, but this is just the day-to-day stuff. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Number 1, because as image bearers of God, it should be an attribute that we possess. This is at the core. This attribute of long suffering or patience is at the core of God's nature and God's character. Listen to 2 Peter 3, 8 and 9. Beloved, don't forget this one thing, that with the Lord, 1 day is as 1,000 years. This is familiar to many of us, and 1,000 years as 1 day. The Lord is not slack concerning the promise, that he's talking about the promise of his return, is not slack, as some count slackness, but is long suffering toward us, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. The reason he hasn't come, gang, is because he is a long-suffering God, and he desires more to come into his kingdom, bottom line. Psalm 86, this is the way the psalmist summed up the nature of God. He says, but you, O Lord, Psalm 86, verse 15, are a God full of compassion and gracious, long-suffering, there's that word again, and abundant in mercy and truth.
So this is more of a character trait.
Yep.
A long-suffering person.
Yeah. Look, let's get real here. If you're going to be an image bearer of God, if you're going to bear the image of Christ into the world, you cannot do it and be impatient with the flaws that you come across in people, particularly your spouse.
Exactly.
If you're going to reflect Christ to your husband or your wife, at the center of it will be a spirit of long suffering. You'll go the distance with them as you are patient with the Spirit's work in their life. That's the bottom line.
Often I see people that are I just call them hotheads, and they just can't keep their mouth shut when anything that they disagree with happens, and they just go after people.
Yep. That would be the opposite of this attribute.
Exactly. And you look at it, it's uncomfortable for everyone.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing, I think, to them because they look like a child.
Right.
And I'm thinking they probably go home, and when they don't get their way, or they think something is being ill-treated or what, they must just go off on their family like crazy.
It's an attitude. I'm not taking this. I'm just...
they just never take anything.
You bring up a good point. Sometimes to understand what a word does mean, take a quick look at its opposites. Right. Here's the opposite of this idea of loving someone, being willing to suffer long with their growth or with them. The word impatient, short-tempered, short-fused, or I wrote this, an unwillingness to endure or suffer difficult, irritating, even ill treatment from your spouse, even for the sake of the marriage. Mm-hmm. I'm unwilling to endure this, right? And so, again, if love is going to be lasting.
Right. And if we're to be an image bearer of the Lord, we have to decide what we want.
We have to be willing to suffer long. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Okay, number 2. So why are we being asked or called to love this way? One, it's the image of God. And if as image bearers, it should be how we love too. Number 2, because simply God has suffered long with me. There's this precept in Scripture. Because we have freely received, we should freely then give. Matthew 10:8. I have so freely received of the long-suffering heart of God.
And the mercy of God.
Who am I to now withhold long-suffering love from Charlene, or for her to withhold a long-suffering love from me? We've received such grace from God. Gang, you have too. God has suffered long with you. Suffer long now with your spouse. As you have freely received it from God, make up your mind today, freely give it away.
Don't we love when people suffer long with us?
Oh, I'm so grateful when people are patient.
And yet to be the opposite of that with other people.
I know.
That's the thing when you realize that what God has done for us and other people do.
Yep.
I mean, I know my family suffers long with me.
Sure.
You suffer long with me. But on the flip side, when it comes for me to suffer long, I don't want to do it.
Well, this is the struggle.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way.
And if you are married to a long-suffering spouse right now, a spouse that's been paid, as I am, it's time to thank them.
I wouldn't really say that.
It's time to thank them. Let them know you appreciate that, because it's important. Number 3, this is kind of twin sister to that second point. Why are we called to love in a long-suffering way and to offer that kind of love to our spouse? Because we too are in process. We are imperfect, flawed to some degree, even broken, right? And so if I want them to show me, it's a kind of a do unto others as you'd have them do unto you kind of thing, where I'm going to need long-suffering from Charlene. Therefore, if I want that from her, if I hope for that, then I need to be that to her. There's a great story. It's really an important story, actually, in Matthew 18 about an ungrateful servant, I think is how it's titled in a lot of Bibles, the ungrateful servant, where one who borrows money and is given responsibility over their master's wealth, does something and loses all that money, and the master comes to collect. And he actually says, please be patient with me and I will repay all. Because the master said, I'm going to sell you. I'm going to sell your wife and your kids. And I'm going to get my money back by selling you. And the servant or the slave says, please be patient. That's the word here. Same word here.
Okay.
And I'll repay all. And so the master shows him mercy and is long-suffering with him. And he goes out and chokes another servant for a few pennies that is owed him, right? And so he's called the ungrateful servant. And in the end of that story, he's condemned. So again, one of the reasons we're called to offer long suffering to our spouses is because we've needed it.
Yes.
To not
over
do that
and over and
and to
over.
go choke her out
Right.
over some petty thing, right? Are you kidding me? We've received so much from the Lord. So, and all three of those are kind of connected. The fourth reason is simply, and we're back to our vow now, because you promised it.
Right. Yeah.
You said it on your wedding day, as we did, right, babe? Almost 47 years ago. We have an anniversary coming up in 2 weeks, our 47th. We promised each other, I will love you, honor you, and cherish you. When we said, I will love you, this is what we were talking about.
Right.
These attributes that we're going over right now in 1 Corinthians 13. The first one being, I will suffer long.
You know what this reminds me of, suffering long, is that a lot of times in our life, in our past life, we were so quick, more you than me, just because I keep my mouth shut. It doesn't mean that I don't feel it, but I just keep my mouth shut more than you do. But when we first got married, we were like always at a standoff, and we would say, like, who's going to go to guns first? Like, we're just going to shoot you down, and it's like a duel.
We drew.
Yeah, we would draw fast.
Guns out.
You more than me, for sure. But I was feeling it in my heart. Don't think it wasn't there. But after a while, we just got tired of that, didn't we?
Yeah.
Of just going to guns all the time.
I don't have the energy now to reach down and draw my gun out.
For everything.
All my bullets are gone.
We were just go to guns over everything. Like, everything was so important. And now when I think about when we get into things and I start getting impatient or such, whatever, and I want to go to guns.
Yeah.
It's like, I think of that and I think, is it worth going to guns over this, or should I just let it go? Just let it go.
Well, you bring up a really interesting point. I think probably this particular attribute, and maybe all of these that we're going to go over in 1 Corinthians are really possessed by mature marriages.
That's true.
You mature up into this,
right.
You learn and grow into it. I wasn't this early on.
Nor was I.
By nature, certainly. Hopefully we've grown after 47 years. Hopefully we've grown in this attribute.
Right.
And I think we absolutely
have. We've grown in the Lord.
Right.
And
the Spirit's had his
work.
The
Spirit has been working in us for a long time.
Yeah.
And as it should. Right. And as we shouldn't look the same as we used to and go to guns so fast. And you go to guns, when you go to guns, go over the right things, not the wrong things. And still in the Spirit.
Petty little irritants and things like that.
That's the thing that gets people.
That's it. That's where long suffering is the most
right.
needed.
It is. It's just every day, all day long.
Chill out, gang.
Yes. Why can't we do that? I don't know.
We got a couple more minutes here before we wrap up. So I want to do a couple of things. 2 more points. One, just a note here. I can truly say, really with transparency, and I feel like I want to say this, that Shar has this attribute in abundance. She has patiently waited and loved me through the ongoing work of God over these many years. And I want to share with just 3 things that come tangible ways. And maybe it'll make sense to somebody out there it'll hang some flesh on this. What are we talking about here? That she has been really long suffering with me in so many ways, but here are 3 ways. 1, I came into the marriage with an almost complete inability to peacefully and productively resolve conflict. I just was quick to battle and dug in hard, and she's patiently waited for the Lord, I think, to work out that stuff out in me, where I have learned, hopefully, certainly I think more than I did in that early decade of our marriage, to peacefully and productively resolve any conflict we have. I didn't know how to when I came into this marriage, and she's had to suffer long with my inability to do that, and she's done that. The second thing I think of is an inability in my part to find a work-life balance. I'm a workaholic by nature and always have loved what I do in ministry life, right? So she has just been so long-suffering, while the Lord has over and over and over again had me course correct my life, and only to fail again and be gone too much and fail to find any kind of balance in my life. And so she's just done an incredible job suffering along with these little things in my life that it's taken the Lord decades to work out, and is still working out. And then thirdly, just hardcore selfishness showing up in my life in many ways. And without getting into detail, but I think in our intimate life, there was selfishness and impatience on my part. She's a homemaker with 3 little children at home, and I'm working many hours and gone a lot. And I wanted to come home and demand what I wanted when I wanted it, without any consideration of how tired she was, or that I hadn't really even been emotionally connected to her for days, and then think that somehow we were going to have some earth-shattering whoopies later on one night. And that selfishness was just deep in me, and not only in that arena, but I think others as well, that she again had to endure and love me, even though that work was far from complete in my life, and God is still working that stuff out. So there's so many, when you just stop and think about it, there's so many ways that I'm so grateful. And I think you should be too, gang, that your spouse has shown you a long-suffering love through all of those arenas of life where God has been working in your life. You are far from perfected, right, in those arenas.
Well, it's sweet of you to say all those things, because no, I have not been a perfect wife in any ways. And like I said, I'm not a verbal person that I would
lash out,
because it's just not my personality. But it's not that it wasn't in my heart. But now that you're talking about those areas back in the days, of our married life and through all the decades,
it's true, right?
It is true. Right. I hate to say that, but it kind of was true. I mean, I have definitely all my faults and issues that you've had to, and have been very patient.
Well, I think we all do, because with me. We all marry a flawed person.
Exactly.
Right?
There's no one that is.
We've always joked, you didn't marry Jesus, Charlene, and I didn't either.
No,
right? You just married a dude, and I married a gal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's sweet of you to say those things.
Yeah.
Though.
I felt like I needed to. And again, hopefully that just gives some kind of clarity of what we're talking, the kind of arenas we're talking about, where we need to extend that kind of love to our spouse.
And as you're saying that, I was reminded, and the Lord was just showing me all the areas that you have been so patient and long-suffering with me. They weren't in the same areas probably that you felt them with me, but you have been too. And I think that maybe every person listening could take a second and reflect, and maybe tell their spouse, I realized this was hard, and I wasn't always easy to love during these times.
Great point. Gang, just acknowledge.
Yeah, because I'm listing right now in my brain all these things that you have been so kind and patient with me when I didn't deserve it, and you have shown me mercy.
Well, that's what's interesting. None of us do deserve it, and yet it's what we promised, we vowed we would offer, and it's what we've received from the Lord in His goodness and in His grace.
Yep.
That's why we are called to extend that same love. Freely we've received, freely give it away.
True. It's very humbling, isn't it?
Last thought, last note. Of course, we've said it last episode too. This is specifically mentioned as a fruit of the Spirit, long suffering. It's the fourth one mentioned in Galatians 5, and therefore, it's not something, we're not saying go try harder.
No.
Really what we're saying is square up with the Lord.
Pray harder. And longer.
There you go. And ask the Lord.
And with expectation.
Ask, seek, knock. If you ask, you'll receive. If you seek, you'll find. If you knock, it'll be open. Come to Him for these things. If you find that you're an impatient person, unwilling to endure, you're irritated all the time, man, gang, I'm telling you, do business with God. Ask the Lord, Lord, help me. You've shown me such long suffering. Now help me show it to others. And you know what? I kind of think He'll do that.
And if you're brave, ask your spouse.
Ooh.
They think that you're long suffering or not. Because you might think you're really long suffering and patient and kind.
And
ask your spouse.
They may have a different view. Huh?
They might have it, or your children.
Oh, good point.
Am I someone that you feel like you can trust
Is graceful,
that it can be gracious and kind,
right,
and not just go off.
Great.
So I don't know.
Good, fun one, yeah.
Yeah, it is a fun one.
All right, we're out of time, so just a quick reminder: our next episode will be kind of a very much a twin to this one. Love suffers long, and while it does, it is also kind. So we're going to talk about kindness.
I can't
next
wait
episode.
For that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. All right, gang. God bless you. So good having you in with us. We can't wait till next time. Until then, He loves you so much.
Bye-bye.